There is a story we are told from childhood, a grand, sweeping narrative of humanity's ascent, carved into the bedrock of our collective understanding. It begins in dust and darkness, with primitive ancestors huddled around a nascent flame, chipping away at stone to craft their first crude tools. It follows a slow, logical, and arduous climb through the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the rise and fall of classical empires, and the steady march of invention that carried us from the abacus to the atom, and finally to the stars. This timeline is comforting. It is orderly. It hangs on the walls of our most prestigious museums and fills the pages of our history books. It tells us that we stand at the absolute pinnacle of a long, unbroken line of progress, the most advanced, the most knowledgeable, the most capable humans who have ever lived. But what if this story is incomplete? What if the library of our past has locked rooms and sealed vaults? What if, scattered across the globe, buried in the earth, or gathering dust in the basements of those same museums, there are things that do not fit? Objects of impossible engineering, traces of forgotten science, footprints of humanity found in stone where no human should have walked. Each one an enigma that whispers of a different past, a chapter torn from our official history because it tells a story that is simply too difficult, too profound, or perhaps too dangerous to accept.
This is the realm of forbidden archaeology. It is not a hunt for mythical treasures or lost continents, but a sober examination of tangible, physical evidence. Evidence that the standard model of history has either failed to explain or, in some cases, chosen to ignore. It forces us to ask a difficult question. Is this dismissal a result of rigorous scientific skepticism, or is it born of a deep institutional fear of rewriting everything we think we know about ourselves? Join us on a journey into this museum of impossible things. We will pull back the veil and examine the artifacts that have been deemed heretical. We will not offer easy answers, but instead dare to ask the questions that have been silenced for generations. Our first exhibit lies deep in the deserts of Peru, an artifact so controversial it threatens to shatter the very timeline of civilization itself. What happens when ancient stones tell a story of men living alongside dinosaurs?
South of the capital city of Lima, Peru, the coastal plains bake under a relentless sun. This is a desolate, almost alien landscape, a place where the earth itself seems to hold its breath. It is a land of secrets, famous for the enigmatic Nazca lines, immense geoglyphs etched into the desert floor, their purpose and meaning lost to the mists of time. But hidden away from the tourists and the well-trodden paths, in the small city of Ica lies a mystery far more profound and infinitely more controversial. It is not etched into the landscape, but into thousands of individual stones, a collection that, if genuine, represents nothing less than a complete annihilation of the history of our world. They are known as the Ica Stones. At first glance, they appear unassuming. Smooth, gray andesite river stones ranging in size from small pebbles that fit in the palm of your hand to massive boulders weighing hundreds of kilograms. They are cool to the touch, their dark surfaces covered in a thin, natural patina. But it is what is carved upon them that stops the mind. Using a continuous single line, a lost artist has engraved a breathtaking panorama of an impossible world. There are thousands of them. Some estimate over 15,000 have been found in total. Together, they form what their main collector, Dr. Javier Cabrera, called a library in stone. And the story this library tells is one that modern science insists can only be fiction.
The engravings depict scenes of staggering technological and scientific sophistication. We see detailed star charts, not just of constellations, but of comets, distant nebulae, and planetary systems viewed through what appear to be powerful telescopes. We see maps of the Earth, but with continents arranged in unfamiliar patterns, suggesting a view of our planet from a time before the land masses settled into their current positions. But most shocking of all are the biological depictions. The stones portray complex medical procedures in stunning detail. Organ transplants, open heart surgery, cesarean sections, and even what can only be interpreted as brain surgery, with ancient surgeons using intricate instruments. This alone would be enough to rewrite our understanding of early medicine. But it is not what makes this stone library truly forbidden. The most notorious and unbelievable images carved into these stones are the ones showing human beings interacting, living and working alongside creatures that, according to our timeline, vanished from the Earth more than 65 million years before the first human ancestor stood upright. Dinosauria. Not as monsters of myth, but as familiar parts of the ancient world. We see men riding atop triceratops as if they were domesticated beasts of burden. We see hunters confronting bipedal carnivores that bear an uncanny resemblance to a Tyrannosaurus rex. Most astonishingly, we see a man looking through a telescope at the sky as a pair of pterodactyls soars overhead. The level of anatomical detail is often precise, showing creatures like Stegosaurus and Brontosaurus in scenes of everyday life. This is not a vague carving of a mythical dragon. This is a clear, unambiguous depiction of a world where man and dinosaur coexisted, an idea so radical it is considered pure fantasy.
So, what is the accepted explanation for this vast and impossible collection? How does mainstream archaeology account for a library that seems to document a lost epoch? The answer is simple, direct, and dismissive. It is all an elaborate and masterful hoax. The official story centers on the collection amassed by Dr. Javier Cabrera in the 1960s. He claimed to have received his first stone from a local farmer named Basilio Ushchua. As Cabrera's interest grew, Ushchua and his friends miraculously began to find more and more of these stones in nearby caves and riverbeds, selling them to the doctor and a few eager tourists. For years, Cabrera dedicated his life to cataloging and interpreting his collection, convinced of its authenticity. However, in 1973, the story took a decisive turn. When Peruvian law made the sale of state antiquities a serious crime, the government arrested Basilio Ushchua. Facing imprisonment, he confessed. He admitted that he, along with his wife and a few friends, had carved all the stones themselves. He explained how they used dental drills to create the engravings, roughed them up, and then baked them in cow dung to simulate the patina of age. For the scientific community, this was case closed. The Ica Stones were relegated to the footnotes of history as a clever cottage industry, a cautionary tale of archaeological fraud and the obsession of a single, gullible doctor.
In the year 1900, a team of Greek sponge divers, blown off course by a violent storm, took shelter near the treacherous coast of a small island called Antikythera. When the storm subsided, they decided to explore the unfamiliar waters. One diver, Elias Stadiatis, descended into the depths. He returned to the surface moments later, babbling in terror of a horrifying sight. A heap of rotting corpses and horses strewn across the seafloor. The captain, believing the diver had been struck by nitrogen narcosis, descended himself. What he found was not a massacre, but something far more profound. The scattered remains of a massive Roman-era shipwreck, perfectly preserved in the cold, dark water nearly 150 feet below. Over the next year, a painstaking and dangerous recovery effort was mounted. The divers brought up a treasure trove of antiquity, magnificent bronze and marble statues, elegant glassware, intricate jewelry, and pottery. Amidst these stunning works of art, they also recovered a severely corroded and calcified lump of bronze, about the size of a large book. It was fragmented, unassuming, and looked like little more than a piece of rock. It was sent to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, along with the other finds, where it sat, largely ignored for months. It was an afterthought, a piece of wreckage deemed unworthy of serious study. Little did anyone know that anonymous lump was more important than all the statues and all the gold. It was a discovery that would, a century later, force a complete reevaluation of the technological capabilities of the ancient world. For decades, the artifact, now known as the Antikythera Mechanism, remained an obscure curiosity. The mainstream view was cautious and conservative. Initial examinations revealed the faint outline of a gear wheel embedded within the corrosion. The consensus was that it was likely some form of navigational instrument, perhaps a complex astrolabe or even a primitive clock. It was certainly clever, a testament to the renowned ingenuity of the Hellenistic Greeks. But it was seen as just that, an ingenious gadget, an outlier perhaps, but still a product of its time, fitting comfortably within our established understanding of what ancient civilizations were capable of achieving. It was a mechanical curiosity, not a revolution.
But the mechanism held its secrets tightly. As the years passed, a handful of researchers refused to let the mystery go. They sensed there was more to this device than met the eye. In the 1970s, the first X-ray examinations by historian Derek de Sola Price revealed a shocking truth hidden within the corroded shell. This was no simple clock. It was an intricate system of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, arranged in a complex and impossibly sophisticated assembly. Price famously declared that its existence was like finding a jet engine in the tomb of Tutankhamun. The scientific community was stunned. But the full extent of the mechanism's genius was still yet to come. It would take the cutting-edge technology of the 21st century to finally read the secrets locked inside this 2,000-year-old machine. Using advanced 3D X-ray scanning and high-resolution surface imaging, an international team of scientists was able to digitally reconstruct the device in its entirety. And what they found was breathtaking. The Antikythera Mechanism was not just a clock. It was a mechanical computer of astronomical complexity. Its elegant hand-cranked system drove a series of gears and pointers that displayed a breathtaking amount of information on its front and back dials. On the front, it showed the position of the Sun and the Moon against the zodiac, as well as the 5 planets known to the Greeks: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. It displayed a 365-day calendar, which it could even adjust for a leap year every 4 years.
But the back of the device was where its true genius lay. It contained 2 large spiral dials. One tracked the Metonic cycle, a 19-year pattern used to reconcile the solar and lunar calendars. The other predicted eclipses. With frightening precision, the mechanism could forecast not only the date, but the likely hour of both solar and lunar eclipses, based on the 223-month period known as the Saros cycle. It even displayed the likely color of a lunar eclipse. To achieve this, the ancient engineers had to overcome a major astronomical hurdle. The moon does not move at a constant speed in its orbit. To account for this variation, they devised a brilliant pin and slot system using 2 slightly off-center gears. This system perfectly modeled the moon's variable motion, an insight into celestial mechanics that would not be formulated mathematically until Johannes Kepler's laws of planetary motion 1,700 years later. The teeth on its gears, some barely a millimeter long, were cut with a precision that historians believed was impossible without modern machine tools.
This is where the comfortable story of the past shatters. The existence of the Antikythera mechanism is no longer in doubt. It is an accepted archaeological fact. The true mystery is how it can possibly exist in the 1st century BCE. Advanced knowledge like this does not simply appear in a vacuum. A masterpiece of mechanical engineering like the mechanism requires a long and developed tradition behind it. It is the end product of generations of trial and error, of accumulated knowledge and refined techniques.
Yet, of this tradition, we have found absolutely nothing. Where are the prototypes? Where are the simpler, earlier versions of the device? Where are the machine tools that were used to craft its precision gears? Where are the technical manuals and schematics that must have accompanied its design? History is utterly silent. It is as if the pinnacle of automotive engineering was not a modern sports car, but a single perfectly preserved Model T Ford, with no evidence of the bicycles, steam engines, or horse-drawn carriages that preceded it. The historical record shows the Greeks building temples and sculpting marble, not machining differential gears and creating complex astronomical computers. This single artifact proves that our perception of the technological landscape of the past is fundamentally flawed. This leads to a far more profound and unsettling theory. Perhaps the Antikythera mechanism is not a singular, miraculous anomaly. Perhaps it is the sole survivor, the last lucky remnant of a widespread and sophisticated technological tradition that has been almost entirely erased from history. We know of catastrophic losses of knowledge, such as the burning of the Great Library of Alexandria, which is said to have housed scrolls containing the accumulated wisdom of the ancient world. How many other devices like the Antikythera mechanism, how many scientific and engineering texts were lost to fire, war, and the slow decay of time? It suggests the so-called Dark Ages that followed the collapse of Rome were not just a decline in social order, but a catastrophic technological reset, a great forgetting of a scientific prowess we are only now beginning to appreciate.
The mechanism survives only because it was cast in durable bronze and sealed in a watery tomb, safe from the ravages of the surface world. It makes one wonder, what other advanced knowledge, what other impossible devices from the ancient world have been lost simply because they were made of more perishable materials? The existence of this single 2,000-year-old computer forces us to reconsider everything. It proves that a level of mechanical and mathematical genius existed in our past that we thought was a modern invention. But what if there is evidence for lost technology that is not thousands, but millions of years old? What happens when a man-made object, forged from high-purity iron, is discovered not in a shipwreck, but entombed in ancient stone from a time before humanity itself was thought to exist?
We have seen evidence of forgotten genius cast in bronze, a testament to a level of mechanical prowess that history tells us should not exist. But that device, for all its wonder, still fits within the accepted timeline of human civilization, albeit at the very edge of what we consider possible. But now we must journey much, much deeper into the past. We leave the familiar shores of the Mediterranean and travel to a dusty, unassuming landscape in the heart of Texas. Here there are no ancient shipwrecks or grand temples. There is only rock, time, and a discovery so paradigm-shattering, so utterly impossible, that it challenges not just the history of humanity, but the history of life on Earth itself. The story begins in June of 1936, near the small town of London, Texas. A couple, Max and Emma Hahn, were out walking along the banks of the Red Creek when they noticed a peculiar rock with a piece of wood protruding from it. It was an oddity, and they took it home as a curiosity. For more than a decade, the rock sat in their home, a simple conversation piece. Then one day in 1947, their son, George, broke the rock open with a hammer and chisel. What he found inside should not be. Embedded within the solid stone was the head of a hammer. It was a simple tool, a form that would be recognizable to any modern craftsman. But it was trapped, completely encased in rock that geologists had long since dated to the Cretaceous period, over 100 million years ago. This is the artifact known as the London Hammer.
The mainstream explanation, when one is offered at all, is swift and scientifically straightforward. The artifact is dismissed as an interesting but entirely modern phenomenon. Geologists argue that the rock is not Cretaceous limestone, but a geologically recent concretion. A concretion is a hard, compact mass of sedimentary rock formed by the precipitation of mineral cement around a nucleus. This process, they say, can happen relatively quickly, sometimes in just a few decades or centuries, not necessarily over eons. The accepted theory is that a 19th century miner or blacksmith dropped his hammer. It fell into a mineral-rich slurry, and the limestone concretion formed around it, creating the illusion of great antiquity. In this view, the hammer is a fascinating geological curiosity, but nothing more. It's a 150-year-old tool trapped in a rock that is, at most, a few centuries old. It is a story that keeps our timeline neat, tidy, and completely intact. But when we look closer at the object itself, this simple, comforting explanation begins to crumble under the weight of profound and unsettling anomalies. The very nature of the hammer's material composition presents a mystery that modern metallurgy cannot easily explain. In the 1980s, the artifact was acquired by a researcher named Carl Ball, who submitted it for a series of tests, including a metallurgical analysis at the prestigious Battelle Memorial Laboratory. The results were bizarre. The hammerhead was found to be composed of 96.6% iron, 2.6% chlorine, and 0.74% sulfur. What is completely missing from this composition is the one element that should be there: carbon. Modern iron and steel production is fundamentally dependent on the addition of carbon to create strength and durability. An iron tool with virtually no carbon is a metallurgical enigma. This suggests it was manufactured using a process completely unknown to us, a process that yields an incredibly pure form of iron.
Furthermore, the iron itself seems to be possessed of an unnatural resistance to corrosion. Since its discovery, a small nick has been present on one edge of the hammerhead. For over 80 years, this exposed metal has shown absolutely no signs of rust. Common iron would have oxidized significantly in that time. This lack of corrosion is attributed by some researchers to a highly advanced treatment or alloy, creating a form of pure iron passivation layer that protects the metal beneath. The high chlorine content is equally baffling. It is not an element that is typically found alloyed with iron in this manner. How could a 19th century blacksmith working with a crude forge create an iron alloy of such impossible purity and with such strange chemical properties? Then there is the matter of the handle. When the hammer was discovered, a portion of the wooden handle was still attached, embedded alongside the head within the concretion. Observers noted that this wood had undergone a process of coalification and petrification. Its outer layers had turned to coal, while the inside had begun the slow process of turning to stone, its porous structure being filled with quartz and calcite crystals. While petrification can sometimes occur in a few hundred years under ideal conditions, the partial coalification of the wood suggests a time frame that is vastly, unimaginably longer. It is not the signature of a 19th century tool handle. It is the signature of deep time. We are left with a series of contradictions that defy the simple hoax or concretion theory. We have a modern-looking tool, made from an impossible iron alloy, with a petrified ancient wooden handle encased in a rock that was found in a geological stratum from the time of the dinosaurs. The mainstream explanation that it's a modern hammer in a modern concretion fails to account for the metallurgical strangeness, the lack of rust, and the state of the wooden handle. The alternative is almost too fantastic to consider.
The only theory that fits all the available evidence is the one that history finds forbidden. That the artifact is exactly what its discoverers believed it to be: a tool, a product of an intelligent industrial civilization that existed on Earth more than 100 million years ago. A civilization so ancient that it rose, flourished, and vanished, leaving behind almost no trace save for a single, humble hammer dropped in the mud, which would, through a 1 in a billion chance, be preserved for a future age to find. This theory suggests that the history of intelligent life on this planet is not a short, straight line leading to us, but a vast, cyclical epic, with chapters so old they have been erased by geology itself. It would mean that we are not the first. It would mean that long before the first primate walked the plains of Africa, another intelligence looked to the sky, built cities, and forged metal. The London hammer is not like the Antikythera Mechanism. The mechanism, for all its genius, was built by human hands in our own historical epoch. This hammer, this simple, solitary tool, points to something else entirely. It is a ghost from a pre-human world, an echo from a time when the very continents were in different positions and the earth was ruled by giant reptiles. It lies before us, a silent and profound challenge to the very foundations of every science we have built. If this one object is genuine, then our entire timeline of life on Earth is wrong. This raises an even more disturbing question. If an entire industrial civilization could exist for millennia
and be so utterly erased that only a single accidental artifact remains? What other secrets does the deep earth hold? We have searched for anomalies in stone and metal, but perhaps the most shocking evidence of a lost past is not waiting to be dug up. Perhaps it is all around us, hidden in plain sight, in structures so massive and so old we have mistaken them for mountains.
Across the vast heartland of North America, from the Ohio Valley to the Mississippi River, the landscape is scarred with ancient, silent monuments. They are not built of stone, but of earth. Colossal mounds, geometric enclosures, and great earthen pyramids, some rivaling the scale of their Egyptian counterparts. For centuries, we have been told they are the work of the ancestors of modern Native American tribes, a testament to the sophisticated cultures that thrived here long before the arrival of Europeans. This is the story of the Adena, the Hopewell, and the Mississippian cultures, the story of the mound builders. But there is another story, a much older and stranger one, whispered in the oral traditions of many Native American tribes, a story the first European settlers heard again and again. It is the story of who lived in this land before the mound builders. The Paiute people of Nevada spoke of a war fought by their ancestors against a race of red-haired, cannibalistic giants known as the Seteca. The Choctaw and Chickasaw of the South told tales of a race of giants who once inhabited what is now Tennessee, whom their ancestors wiped out. From coast to coast, these traditions of a primordial war against a giant elder race are unnervingly consistent. For a long time, this was dismissed as mere folklore, mythical tales of a distant, heroic past. Then, in the 19th and early 20th centuries, as settlers pushed westward, they began to plow the fields and excavate the ancient mounds, and they began to find the bones. What followed was a flood of discoveries that for a time captivated the nation. Forgotten archives of old newspapers, town histories, and personal letters from this period are filled with thousands of detailed, matter-of-fact reports of the unearthing of giant skeletons. This was not the stuff of dime novels or circus sideshows. These were sober accounts, reported as local news. In 1895, the San Diego Union reported the discovery of a tomb near the city containing the skeletons of 12 individuals, most of them measuring over 7 feet in height. In West Virginia in 1774, a man named Jack Parsons found a skeleton in a cave that measured 7 feet 6 inches long. In the Ohio River Valley, the very heart of the mound-building cultures, reports were rampant. An 1883 account from a county history tells of a mound containing a skeleton of a man of monstrous size, measuring 9 feet in length. The descriptions were often bizarrely consistent. These were not just tall individuals. They were reported as being anatomically different, with massive jawbones, unusually thick skulls, and, in many cases, a peculiar genetic anomaly, a double row of teeth. From New York to California, from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, the reports kept coming. On Catalina Island, off the coast of California, amateur archaeologist Ralph Glidden claimed to have unearthed the remains of over 3,000 skeletons, many of them belonging to a race of fair-haired, fair-skinned giants, the tallest measuring over 9 feet. The sheer volume and geographic spread of these independent discoveries is staggering. For over a century, It seemed that America was giving up the dead of a lost and forgotten race of titans. And at the center of this unfolding mystery was the nation's most prestigious scientific institution. The Smithsonian Institution's Bureau of Ethnology, established in the late 19th century, was tasked with studying and preserving the history of the peoples of the Americas. Their agents were at the forefront of the mound excavations, and their own official published reports corroborate the story. The Smithsonian's 12th annual report, published in 1894, is a massive volume detailing their work. Within its pages, one can find numerous unambiguous descriptions of the excavation of skeletons of great size and unusual proportions. In a mound in Kanawha Valley, West Virginia, their own agent reported unearthing a skeleton measuring 7 feet 6 inches, buried in a timber-lined tomb. Another report describes a skeleton of extraordinary size found in a mound in Illinois. For a time, it seemed the Smithsonian was actively documenting the existence of this lost race.
So, where are they now? Where are these thousands of giant skeletons? If the evidence was so plentiful, so widely reported, and even documented by the Smithsonian itself, why is there not a single, unambiguous giant skeleton on display in any museum, anywhere in the world? This is where the mystery deepens, and the official story takes a sharp and defensive turn. The modern mainstream view is that every single one of these thousands of reports was a lie, a mistake, or a sensationalist exaggeration. Anthropologists today assert that the 19th century excavators were prone to stretching the truth to sell newspapers or gain local fame. They argue that skeletons were often mismeasured, or that the term giant was used loosely to describe anyone who was simply taller than the average of the time, which was around 5 foot 6 inches. The accounts of double rows of teeth and other anomalies are dismissed as fanciful inventions. The Smithsonian's own reports, they now claim, were simply using the flowery, imprecise language of the era. A skeleton of great size was a turn of phrase, not a scientific measurement. The ultimate proof, they say, is the complete lack of physical evidence. If these giants were real, their bones would be in museums. Since they are not, they must never have existed. It is a clean, simple, and total dismissal. But this explanation requires us to believe in an absurdity of historical proportions. It requires us to believe that thousands of separate individuals in hundreds of different locations over the span of more than a century all independently decided to invent or wildly exaggerate stories with strikingly similar details? It requires us to believe that trained scientific agents from the Smithsonian were incapable of using a measuring tape accurately, or that they would fill their official academic reports with fanciful, unscientific language. The dismissal of this mountain of written evidence seems less like a scientific conclusion and more like an act of willful denial. This leads to the final, most disturbing part of the story: the theory of a systematic and deliberate cover-up. Many researchers who have investigated these historical records have come to a chilling conclusion. The evidence didn't just fade away, it was intentionally made to disappear. The theory centers on a powerful policy agenda within the Smithsonian during its formative years. Men like John Wesley Powell, the first director of the Bureau of Ethnology, and later Ales Hrdlicka, the first curator of physical anthropology, were fierce proponents of a particular theory of American prehistory, that all indigenous peoples of the Americas were of a single racial stock who had migrated from Asia across the Bering Strait land bridge. This became and remains the foundational dogma of American anthropology. According to this theory, any evidence that complicated or contradicted this simple narrative had to be suppressed. Skeletons of a giant race, reports of fair-haired individuals, or skulls with anomalous features suggested a far more complex past. They hinted at multiple migrations, vanished races, and a human story in the Americas that was far older and stranger than the Bering Strait theory could account for. The charge is that Hrdlicka, in particular, established a policy of recategorizing or simply destroying any skeletal remains that did not fit his preferred paradigm. The thousands of giant skeletons that were reportedly sent to the Smithsonian from all over the country were never catalogued. They were never put on display. They simply vanished into the institution's vast basement, never to be seen again. While difficult to prove definitively, this theory of suppression provides a chillingly logical explanation for the greatest archaeological mystery in North America, the case of the missing giants. It suggests that our historical record has been deliberately edited, that inconvenient evidence has been systematically destroyed to protect a favored scientific theory. The goal was not to uncover the truth of the past, but to construct a version of the past that was simple, orderly, and politically acceptable. The thousands of newspaper clippings, the town histories, and even the Smithsonian's own early reports may be all that is left, a paper trail ghost of a people whose very existence has been erased from our memory. The story of the American giants is a profound lesson in how easily history can be written and unwritten. It suggests that a powerful institution can act as a gatekeeper of knowledge, deciding which truths are fit for public consumption and which must be buried forever. This leads us to a crucial question. We have seen how tangible, physical evidence like skeletons can be hidden from the public record. But what happens when the evidence for a lost chapter of history is not in bone, but in writing? What happens when ancient, revered manuscripts, texts that have survived for millennia, describe not a lost race of men, but a lost science of gods? A science of flying machines and celestial weapons, described with such technical detail that they seem to leap from the pages of science fiction.
We have seen how the bones of a lost race could be erased from history, their very existence denied by the gatekeepers of modern science. This was a suppression of the physical record. But now we turn our attention to a different kind of evidence, one that cannot be so easily buried or destroyed. Evidence that has been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years, locked within the sacred verses of one of the oldest and most profound literary traditions, the Sanskrit epics of ancient India. The Mahabharata and the Ramayana are more than just religious myths. They are colossal works of literature, philosophy, and history, forming the bedrock of Hindu culture. Within their millions of verses, they describe a world of enlightened kings, noble heroes, malevolent demons, and the direct intervention of the gods in human affairs. They tell of great dynastic struggles and epic wars fought with bows, arrows, swords, and something else. Woven throughout these ancient narratives are startlingly detailed descriptions of celestial vehicles and weapons of such devastating power they seem utterly out of place in the ancient world. They are technologies that by all rights should not have been imagined, let alone described, thousands of years before the industrial age. At the heart of this technological mystery is a craft known as the Vimana. These are not the simple horse-drawn chariots of the Greek and Roman gods. The Vimanas, as described in texts like the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and the Puranas, are sophisticated aerial vehicles. The Pushpaka Vimana, which belonged to the demon king Ravana, was described as a massive, multi-tiered aerial palace that could travel vast distances at the speed of the mind. It was capable of carrying numerous passengers and could be directed by thought alone. Other texts describe a wide variety of these craft, some shaped like spheres, others like saucers or long cylinders, often gleaming like gold or polished silver. They moved with a sound like gentle thunder, could hover motionless in the sky, execute impossible maneuvers, and some could even travel underwater or into the starry regions. The descriptions are not fleeting or vague. They are often presented as accepted functional parts of the world.
For centuries, the mainstream academic and Indological view has been that these accounts are pure poetry, the products of a fertile and vibrant imagination. Scholars interpret the Vimanas as powerful religious symbols and literary metaphors. They are the vehicles of the gods, and their fantastical abilities are meant to convey divine power, not to describe literal machines. Ancient humanity, they argue, has always dreamed of flight, and these stories are simply one culture's beautiful, elaborate expression of that universal dream. They are mythology, not mechanics, fantasy, not physics. This perspective is logical, it is safe, and it keeps the Vimanas confined to the realm of poetic fancy, ensuring our historical timeline remains undisturbed. But this comfortable explanation begins to strain when we look beyond the epic poems and into other, more obscure Sanskrit works. It completely shatters when confronted with a text so strange, so detailed, and so utterly technical in its language that it defies all conventional interpretation. A text that purports to be nothing less than a design and operations manual for building and flying these ancient machines. It is called the Vimanika Shastra. The origin of this text is itself a mystery. It was transcribed between 1918 and 1923 by a man named Pandit Subbaraya Shastri, who claimed that the verses were dictated to him directly through psychic revelation by the ancient Vedic sage Bharadwaja. Because of this unorthodox origin, mainstream science dismisses the text out of hand as a 20th century fabrication. And yet, The text itself is written in an archaic form of Sanskrit, and it contains a level of dense technical detail that seems far beyond the capabilities of its supposed author. It is not a poem, it is a treatise on aeronautics. The Vimanika Shastra describes in meticulous detail the construction of at least 4 different types of Vimana, including the cone-shaped Shakuna Vimana and the pyramid-like Rukma Vimana. The text is broken down into chapters that read like an engineering handbook. It discusses the 32 primary components of a Vimana and the 16 different types of heat-absorbent metals required for their construction. It speaks of strange alloys like Rajaloha, Somaka, and Saundalika, providing recipes for their creation. It describes the power source of the Vimanas in baffling detail, referencing mercury vortex engines, solar energy, and other unknown forms of propulsion.
The text goes on to describe the complex instrumentation of the cockpit. It lists a series of specialized mirrors and lenses, each with a specific function. The Guha Garbha Darshana Yantra was supposedly a device that could locate hidden objects underground. The Parashabda Grahaka Yantra could listen to conversations from a great distance. Most startlingly, it describes defensive and offensive systems. The Marika Yantra could allegedly project a beam of energy that would paralyze an enemy pilot, while the Jwalini Yantra could produce a fiery blast. This is not the language of myth and metaphor. This is the precise, often dry language of a technical manual. It even includes chapters on the proper diet for pilots, specifying certain types of milk and grains, and the 32 secrets a pilot must learn to command his craft, including the ability to create zigzag motions, become invisible, and absorb solar energy. The central, nagging question is this: why? Why would anyone, either an ancient sage or a 20th century hoaxer, create a text with such a mind-numbing level of technical minutiae if the goal was simply to write a fantasy story? The sheer specificity of the Vimanika Shastra is what makes it so compelling and so difficult to dismiss. It doesn't fit the pattern of mythological writing. It feels like a genuine, though perhaps incomplete and imperfectly translated, fragment of a lost science. This idea of a lost ancient science is not confined to India. While the Sanskrit texts are perhaps the most detailed, echoes of advanced technology can be found in cultures all over the world. The strange wheeled craft described by the prophet Ezekiel in the Bible, the flying shields mentioned in Roman histories, and the accounts of airborne dragon chariots of the early Chinese emperors all hint at a shared global memory of a time when humanity, or someone, commanded the skies. The Indian epics take this a step further, describing not just the vehicles, but the wars they were used in. They speak of celestial weapons like the Brahmastra, an iron thunderbolt that could incinerate entire armies, scorch the earth, make the hair and nails of survivors fall out, and poison the land for generations.
The chilling parallels to the effects of nuclear warfare are impossible to ignore. Could these epic poems be the distorted, mythologized histories of a real high-tech global war that took place in our planet's remote past? A war that shattered a great civilization and plunged the world into a dark age, leaving behind only these fragmented sacred texts as a record of the science that was lost.
If this is true, then we have been misreading our most sacred stories. We have been seeing them as simple allegories, when they may in fact be the last surviving blueprints of a forgotten technological age. The evidence suggests that a civilization with the power of flight, and perhaps even the power of the atom, existed in our deep past. A civilization of such power would not have limited their engineering prowess to flying machines. Their grandest projects, their monuments and cities, would have been built on a scale we can barely comprehend. They would have built structures designed to last for eternity. Structures so colossal, so ancient, and so weathered by time that today we might not even recognize them as artificial. We might mistake their pyramids for mountains.
We have followed the trail of forbidden history, from written texts to buried bones, each clue pointing towards a past far more complex than we have been led to believe. The story of the Vimanas suggests a lost science of aeronautics. But if such a high civilization existed, with technology that could command the skies, surely their mark upon the earth itself would be equally grand. Their monuments would not be humble tombs or temples. They would be structures built on a scale that defies our very definition of what is possible. They would build mountains. To find such evidence, we journey to the heart of Europe, to the tranquil green valleys of Bosnia and Herzegovina and the unassuming town of Visoko. For centuries, the people of Visoko have lived in the shadow of a collection of strange, almost perfectly geometric hills. The largest, Vysochica Hill, dominates the landscape, its triangular faces and distinct apex looking for all the world like a grass-covered pyramid. Local legends spoke of it as the seat of medieval kings, but it was always understood to be a work of nature, a quirk of geology. That is, until 2005, when Bosnian-American researcher Dr. Semir Osmanagic looked at this valley with fresh eyes and made an announcement that would send shockwaves through the world of archaeology. He claimed that Vysochica Hill and several surrounding hills were not natural formations at all. They were, he asserted, a complex of colossal man-made pyramids, the largest and oldest on the entire planet, buried under millennia of soil and vegetation. He named them the Bosnian Valley of the Pyramids. The response from the mainstream scientific community was immediate, unified, and utterly dismissive. Geologists from around the world declared the hills to be a well-documented natural phenomenon known as flatirons, geological formations created when layers of sedimentary rock are tilted, uplifted, and then differentially eroded, often resulting in triangular or pyramid-like facets. The European Association of Archaeologists, along with numerous other academic bodies, penned open letters denouncing the project as a cruel hoax and a form of nationalism.
Pseudoscience. They pointed out, correctly, that there is absolutely no archaeological record of a civilization existing in Stone Age Europe that was capable of undertaking a construction project of this magnitude. To them, the case is closed before it has even been opened. The Bosnian Pyramids are a fantasy, a geological formation being exploited for tourism and nationalist pride. It is a story of nature, not of man. And yet, despite this wall of academic opposition, the team at the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation, along with hundreds of international volunteers and a handful of independent researchers, began to dig. And what they claim to have found on and beneath these hills directly challenges the simple geological explanation. The mainstream narrative insists there is nothing to see here. But the evidence on the ground tells a different, far stranger story. First, there is the matter of geometry and orientation. Thermal imaging has revealed that the hills cool down faster than their surroundings, suggesting they are less dense or more porous, like an artificial structure. Satellite and geodetic surveys have confirmed that the three largest structures, the pyramids of the Sun, Moon, and Dragon, form a near-perfect equilateral triangle. Most astonishingly, the northern face of the Pyramid of the Sun is aligned to true north with a deviation of less than 1 degree. This is a level of precision that is even more accurate than that of the Great Pyramid of Giza. A coincidence of geology, perhaps, but the anomalies were just beginning. As excavators began to clear away the topsoil on the Pyramid of the Sun, they did not find the expected layers of fractured sedimentary rock that a flatiron should possess. Instead, they uncovered vast paved terraces and massive flat-topped blocks. Samples of these blocks were sent to multiple institutes for analysis across Europe. The results came back with a stunning conclusion. The material was not natural stone. It was a form of ancient, man-made concrete. Analysis showed it was composed of a gravel conglomerate bound by a calcium hydroxide binder, and that it possessed a hardness and water resistance far superior to modern Portland cement. Beneath these concrete layers, archaeologists have found layers of clay, which they interpret as a waterproofing and insulation layer, a common feature in advanced construction. Pseudoscience. They pointed out, correctly, that there is absolutely no archaeological record of a civilization existing in Stone Age Europe that was capable of undertaking a construction project of this magnitude. To them, the case is closed before it has even been opened. The Bosnian Pyramids are a fantasy, a geological formation being exploited for tourism and nationalist pride. It is a story of nature, not of man. And yet, despite this wall of academic opposition, the team at the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation, along with hundreds of international volunteers and a handful of independent researchers, began to dig. and what they claim to have found on and beneath these hills directly challenges the simple geological explanation. The mainstream narrative insists there is nothing to see here, but the evidence on the ground tells a different, far stranger story. First, there is the matter of geometry and orientation. Thermal imaging has revealed that the hills cool down faster than their surroundings, suggesting they are less dense or more porous, like an artificial structure. Satellite and geodetic surveys have confirmed that the three largest structures, the pyramids of the Sun, Moon, and Dragon, form a near-perfect equilateral triangle. Most astonishingly, the northern face of the Pyramid of the Sun is aligned to true north with a deviation of less than 1 degree. This is a level of precision that is even more accurate than that of the Great Pyramid of Giza. A coincidence of geology, perhaps, but the anomalies were just beginning. As excavators began to clear away the topsoil on the Pyramid of the Sun, they did not find the expected layers of fractured sedimentary rock that a flatiron should possess. Instead, they uncovered vast paved terraces and massive flat-topped blocks. Samples of these blocks were sent to multiple institutes for analysis across Europe. The results came back with a stunning conclusion. The material was not natural stone. It was a form of ancient, man-made concrete. Analysis showed it was composed of a gravel conglomerate bound by a calcium hydroxide binder, and that it possessed a hardness and water resistance far superior to modern Portland cement. Beneath these concrete layers, archaeologists have found layers of clay, which they interpret as a waterproofing and insulation layer, a common feature in advanced construction.
When you assemble these pieces, the alternative narrative becomes clear. The researchers on the ground believe they have found the remnants of a lost European civilization that predates all known advanced cultures by tens of thousands of years. Carbon dating of organic material found on the concrete blocks has returned dates of over 30,000 years, placing the structure's origin deep in the Ice Age, at a time when mainstream science tells us Europe was inhabited only by primitive hunter-gatherers. This was a civilization that could not only move mountains, but could manufacture superior building materials and, most incredibly, could engineer the landscape on a colossal scale to harness the natural energy of the earth. In this view, the Bosnian Pyramids are not tombs or temples. They are ancient energy machines, power plants. This connects the Bosnian anomaly to a potential global network of similar structures. Researchers have long pointed out the geometric and energetic similarities between megalithic sites all over the world. Could the pyramids of Egypt, Mexico, China, and now Bosnia all be part of a single global parent civilization built for a purpose we are only now beginning to suspect? It suggests a chapter of our history so ancient, so advanced, and so utterly alien to our current understanding that its rediscovery would change everything. we are left with two irreconcilable stories. One from mainstream science tells us this is a valley of natural hills and that all contrary evidence is mistake, misinterpretation, or outright fraud. The other, from the researchers on the ground, tells us this is a valley of colossal energy machines, the work of a civilization that history has forgotten. It is a conflict that strikes at the very heart of how we define evidence and who has the authority to interpret our past.
If such a civilization could reshape the Earth on this scale, mastering geology and planetary energies, their command over more refined engineering must have been equally profound. What might their smaller, more intricate projects have looked like? We now journey from a work of colossal earth-moving to a mystery of precise, microscopic metallurgy, a discovery in a remote corner of Asia that points to impossible, high-tech engineering, sealed in stone that predates humanity by millions of years.
We have explored a colossal structure that may be an ancient power plant, a work of impossible terraforming. But the fingerprints of a lost advanced civilization would not only be found in the monumental, they would also exist in the intricate, the precise, and the industrial. To find our next piece of the puzzle, we journey to one of the most remote and desolate landscapes on the planet, the Qaidam Basin in China's Qinghai province. This is a harsh, arid, and almost Martian environment, a place where time itself seems to have stood still. Here, overlooking the shimmering salt flats of Lake Tosin, stands a strange, ochre-colored hill known as Mount Baigong. And on and within this mountain lies an enigma that challenges everything we know about the history of technology. At the foot of Mount Baigong, which bears a curious resemblance to a weathered pyramid, are three caves. The two smaller ones have collapsed, but the largest, a cavern almost 20 feet high, remains open. Inside, a bizarre and unnatural sight greets any who enter. Embedded in the solid rock of the cave's back wall, slanting down from above, is the end of a thick, reddish-brown pipe, its circular opening perfectly visible. It is about the diameter of a dinner plate. On the cave floor, dozens more of these strange metallic pipes can be found. Some lie on the surface, while others plunge deep into the earth below, their ultimate depth and destination unknown.
The mystery, however, is not confined to this single cave. On the shores of Lake Tosin, a short distance away, the same phenomenon is repeated. Hundreds of these iron pipes are scattered across the rocks and beach. They come in a variety of diameters, from a few centimeters to the larger conduits found in the cave. Many are broken, revealing hollow interiors. Some lie in what appears to be deliberate, organized patterns. Others jut out from the sheer rock faces, as if they were once part of a much larger, complex system that has since been shattered by the immense pressure of geological time. The entire area gives the haunting impression of a vast, ruined industrial complex,
an ancient plumbing or drainage system now left silent and exposed in the desert sun. When this site was first officially reported in the late 1990s, it caused a sensation. The immediate question was, of course, their age. The pipes are firmly embedded in rock that geologists have dated to the Miocene and Pliocene epochs, placing their origin somewhere between 5 and 15 million years ago. This is an impossible time frame. The Iron Age, when humanity first learned to smelt iron, began only 3,000 years ago. The existence of a complex network of manufactured iron pipes millions of years before the first human ancestor even walked upright is a chronological absurdity of the highest order. Faced with this impossibility, the mainstream scientific explanation, developed by Chinese geologists, is that the pipes are not artificial at all. They are, they propose, a rare and unusual but entirely natural geological formation. The theory suggests that in the remote past, this area was lush with vegetation. The pipe-like structures are, in this view, fossilized tree roots or hollow reeds, a phenomenon known as pseudomorphism. According to this model, ancient plant matter was buried in iron-rich sediment. As the organic material decayed and vanished, iron minerals in the surrounding groundwater slowly seeped into the cavities, precipitating out of solution and forming a hard, durable cast of iron oxide in the exact shape of the original root or reed. This process would explain both the hollow, pipe-like structure and the immense age of the objects, neatly resolving the paradox and classifying the Baigong Pipes as a fascinating but natural geological oddity.
But, as with so many of these inconvenient artifacts, this simple natural explanation begins to fray when we examine the specific details. The theory of fossilized roots struggles to account for several deeply puzzling aspects of the Baigong Pipes. First, there is their chemical composition. Initial analysis was carried out by a local smeltery and later by the Beijing Institute of Geology. The results were strange. While the pipes are primarily composed of iron oxide, silica, and calcium oxide, the tests revealed that over 8% of their material makeup could not be identified. This unknown component is a significant anomaly. Furthermore, some samples were found to contain a high percentage of silicon dioxide, a primary component of glass. High-temperature smelting is known to produce iron silicates, which share properties with glass. The process of fossilization, a low-temperature water-based phenomenon, cannot account for this. It suggests the pipes were formed not by slow mineral deposition, but by a high-temperature industrial process. Second, there is the issue of their structure and placement. While fossilized roots can be tube-like, they are typically irregular, gnarled, and random in their distribution. The Baigong Pipes, by contrast, are often described as being remarkably uniform in their diameter, with clean, circular openings. Their arrangement, both within the cave and along the lake shore, has been noted by investigators as appearing non-random, as if they were laid out according to a deliberate plan. This orderly arrangement and geometric regularity are hallmarks of intelligent design.
not the chaotic growth patterns of nature. Some reports have even claimed the pipes show signs of low-level radioactivity, a property that has no place in either the fossilization theory or the conventional history of metallurgy. The location itself adds to the mystery. The pipes are centered on and around this one specific pyramid-shaped hill. Why would this bizarre geological process be so intensely localized to this one spot? And why a hill that so uncannily resembles an artificial structure? The convergence of a pyramid-like landform with a network of seemingly manufactured pipes is, at the very least, a startling coincidence.
The sheer inadequacy of the geological explanation has forced researchers to consider far more radical possibilities. If they are not natural, and they cannot be human, then who or what created them? One theory posits the existence of a highly advanced pre-human terrestrial civilization, a culture that mastered metallurgy millions of years ago, built an industrial complex in this remote region, and then vanished without a trace, leaving only their plumbing behind. Another, even more extraordinary theory was put forward by some of the original Chinese investigators and widely reported in the state-run media at the time. They proposed an extraterrestrial origin. In this scenario, the Baigong site was an ancient alien outpost. The pyramid-shaped mountain could have served as a landmark or even a base, and the pipe system could have been part of their technology, perhaps a system for drawing water and other minerals from the salt lake. This would explain the advanced metallurgy, the impossible age, and the sheer alienness of the discovery. The Baigong Pipes remain a profound and unsettling enigma. They are a true out-of-place artifact, a piece of evidence that seems to fit no established category. The geological explanation feels insufficient, but the alternative, a prehistoric industrial intelligence, is too radical for science to accept. They sit in a lonely intellectual limbo, a testament to the fact that our planet's deep past may be far stranger than we can possibly imagine, and that we may not have been the first to build here.
This pattern of discovery, followed by a swift and often inadequate mainstream dismissal, has become a central theme in our investigation. The Baigong Pipes, the London Hammer, the giant skeletons, each anomaly is either ignored or explained away with a theory that seems to raise more questions than it answers. This forces us to ask a more fundamental question. Is the scientific establishment genuinely unable to explain these artifacts within its current paradigm? Or is it, for some reason, actively unwilling to? What happens when we stop investigating the mysteries themselves and start investigating the very system that seems so determined to suppress them?
Throughout this journey, we have examined a series of profound anomalies. We have seen stones that depict an impossible history, a 2,000-year-old computer of staggering complexity, a modern hammer in ancient rock,
historical records of a giant race that has vanished, technical manuals for flying machines, and mountains that may be artificial pyramids. Each of these discoveries, on its own, is a deep and compelling mystery. But when viewed together, they point to an even greater enigma. Not the mystery of what these artifacts are, but the mystery of why they are not being seriously studied. Why is it that evidence which could potentially revolutionize our understanding of the past is so often met with institutional ridicule, academic hostility, or, most tellingly, a profound and deafening silence? The very term forbidden archaeology implies that certain knowledge is off limits, that certain discoveries are being actively and consciously suppressed. But could that really be true? Could a global conspiracy of scientists and academics exist, all silently agreeing to hide the truth from the public? The defenders of mainstream science argue that such a notion is absurd, a paranoid fantasy. They will tell you, correctly, that science is a competitive and often cutthroat international endeavor. The greatest rewards in science, fame, funding, and a place in history do not go to those who obediently uphold the status quo. They go to those who shatter it. A young and ambitious archaeologist who could prove with irrefutable evidence the existence of a lost, super-advanced civilization would not be silenced. They would be on the cover of every scientific journal in the world. Science, they insist, is a self-correcting system. The scientific method, with its rigorous demands for peer-reviewed, replicable, and falsifiable evidence, is the greatest tool for truth-seeking ever devised. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the simple truth is that none of the artifacts we have examined have met that high bar. Hoaxes, misinterpretations, and natural phenomena are far simpler and therefore more scientific.
Explanations. There is no conspiracy. There are only the high standards of good science, protecting us from fanciful thinking. This is a powerful and persuasive argument. It paints a picture of science as a pure, objective pursuit of knowledge, immune to the dogma and prejudice that plague other human institutions. But what if that picture is incomplete? What if the suppression of knowledge does not require a conscious, top-down conspiracy? What if, instead, the very structure of the academic world, the very way scientific knowledge is generated and approved, creates a powerful, self-policing system that automatically filters out any evidence that is too revolutionary? What if there is a knowledge filter? This concept, explored by researchers like Michael Cremo, suggests that the scientific establishment functions like a semi-permeable membrane. Information that conforms to the existing paradigm passes through easily. Information that radically contradicts it is rejected. This filtration process is not malicious. It is a natural, systemic byproduct of how the institution is built, and it operates through several powerful interlocking mechanisms. The first is educational programming. From our earliest school days, we are taught a specific, linear story of the past, from primitive cave dwellers to modern man. This narrative is reinforced for years. By the time a student becomes a professional archaeologist or historian, this paradigm is not just a theory, it is the very lens through which they view the world. Evidence that doesn't fit this lens is often not even perceived as evidence. It is automatically classified as an error, a hoax, or an anomaly to be ignored. It is a form of paradigm blindness. The second mechanism is the peer review process. In theory, peer review is a vital quality control system. In practice, it can also be a formidable tool for enforcing orthodoxy. When a researcher submits a paper with a radical conclusion, for instance, arguing that the Bosnian Pyramids are artificial and 30,000 years old, the paper is sent to a small group of anonymous experts for review. These experts are, by definition, the established leaders of the current paradigm. The paper is a direct challenge to their life's work. The result is often a swift and brutal rejection, not necessarily because the data is flawed, but because the conclusion is deemed unparsimonious, unprofessional, or simply impossible. The peer review system acts as the immune system of the paradigm, attacking and neutralizing foreign ideas.
Third, there is the funnel of funding. Scientific research is incredibly expensive, and archaeologists are dependent on funding from universities and government institutions. These institutions have committees that decide which projects get funded. An application to study the migration patterns of the Clovis people by analyzing their spear points will be seen as serious science and likely get funded. An application to excavate a mound in Ohio in search of 7-foot skeletons with double rows of teeth will be laughed out of the room. The system creates a powerful financial incentive to stay within the accepted boundaries of research, effectively starving any truly revolutionary inquiry before it can even begin. Finally, and perhaps most powerfully, there is career and social pressure. A young academic who publicly champions a forbidden idea, like the authenticity of the Ica Stones, is committing professional suicide. They will be labeled a pseudoscientist or a crank. Their chances of getting published, of securing a teaching position, or of ever receiving tenure will plummet to zero. They risk being ostracized by their colleagues and ridiculed in the media. The human desire for acceptance and a stable career is a powerful force that keeps most academics firmly in line. This knowledge filter is not a new phenomenon. The history of science is filled with examples of groundbreaking discoveries that were fiercely resisted by the establishment for decades. When geologist J. Harlan Bretz first proposed that the channeled scablands of Washington state were carved by a single cataclysmic flood, he was ridiculed for 40 years because the dogma of the day was strict uniformitarianism. The idea that all geological change is slow and gradual. He was eventually proven spectacularly right. When Alfred Wegener proposed the theory of continental drift, he was dismissed as a lunatic because geologists could not imagine a force powerful enough to move continents. The overwhelming evidence of matching coastlines and fossils was ignored for half a century, until the mechanism of plate tectonics was discovered.
The guardians of the old paradigm were not evil men engaged in a conspiracy. They were simply human beings protecting a worldview they had built their careers upon. The system resisted the paradigm shift. This same dynamic,
This same institutional inertia is what proponents of forbidden archaeology claim is happening today. The evidence for a lost ancient supercivilization is being filtered out, not because it has been disproven, but because it is simply too revolutionary for the current paradigm to absorb. The suppression, then, is not the work of shadowy figures in a smoke-filled room. It is a systemic, unconscious process. The gatekeepers of knowledge are not necessarily trying to hide the truth. They are simply protecting the integrity of a story, their story of the past. The filter is real, and it may be the single greatest obstacle preventing us from discovering the true, epic, and almost unbelievable story of humanity. This brings us to the most fundamental paradigm of all, the story that is most fiercely protected by the knowledge filter. If the academic world is so resistant to the idea of lost civilizations or impossible artifacts, how might it react to evidence that challenges the very story of who we are, where we came from, and what it means to be human? What happens when the most profound and forbidden anomaly of all is not found in stone or ancient text or buried bones, but is encoded in the very fabric of our being, within our own DNA?
We have journeyed through the outer world, searching for the ghosts of a lost past in the forgotten corners of the earth. We have sifted through the evidence left behind in stone, in metal, and in the faint, mythologized echo of ancient texts. But the greatest and most profound artifact of all has been with us this entire time. It is not an object we can excavate from the ground. It is the very vessel that carries us through life. It is the human body and the ancient digital library locked within every one of its trillions of cells, our DNA. While civilizations can fall and their monuments can turn to dust, this biological record has been passed down with breathtaking fidelity from generation to generation across unimaginable gulfs of time. The double helix is a history book written in a language of 4 letters, containing over 3 billion characters. It tells the story of our species, our triumphs, our struggles, and our deepest origins. For decades, we have been working to translate this book, and the story it seemed to tell was a familiar one.
The standard, mainstream model of human evolution is a story of slow, gradual, and natural ascent. It begins in the savannas of Africa, where around 300,000 years ago, a new species emerged, Homo sapiens. For millennia, these early humans lived as hunter-gatherers, not vastly different from other hominin species that shared the planet, like the Neanderthals and the Denisovans. Then, around 70,000 years ago, a small group migrated out of Africa, slowly spreading across the continents, eventually populating every corner of the globe. The story culminates around 50,000 years ago with a mysterious and sudden event known as the Great Leap Forward, an inexplicable explosion of art, culture, complex language and sophisticated tool-making that marks the birth of modern human behavior. It is a neat, linear progression from ape to ancestor to us, a story of natural selection, random mutation, and the slow, steady march of evolutionary time. But as our ability to read the genetic code becomes more and more powerful, we have begun to find strange passages in our own biological book. We have discovered glitches in the narrative, unexpected plot twists, and entire chapters that seem to have been written by an unknown author. The clean, simple story of our origins is beginning to unravel, revealing a past that is far stranger, more complex, and profoundly more mysterious than we ever imagined. The first great mystery lies in what geneticists call ghost populations. When scientists sequenced the genome of our closest extinct relatives, the Neanderthals and the Denisovans, they found traces of their DNA woven into the genes of modern non-African populations. This was proof that our ancestors interbred with these other hominins. But when they sequenced the genomes of modern West Africans, they found something baffling. Up to 19% of their genetic ancestry comes from an archaic population that is completely unknown to science. It matches neither Neanderthal nor Denisovan, nor any other known hominin fossil. It is a ghost in our family tree. Who were these people? An entire branch of the human story, significant enough to leave a major mark on our DNA, lived, breathed, and interbred with our ancestors, and yet we have never found a single one of their bones.
Then there is the structural anomaly at the very heart of our genome, the mystery of chromosome 2. All other great apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, have 24 pairs of chromosomes. Humans have only 23. For years, this was a puzzle. The mainstream explanation is that at some point in our distant past, two ancestral ape chromosomes fused together, end to end, to create the single large chromosome we now know as human chromosome 2. Scientists have even found the telltale signs of this fusion event, the remnants of telomeres. The protective caps of chromosomes are found in the middle of our chromosome 2, right where the fusion would have occurred. This is presented as definitive proof of our shared ancestry with apes, a random, accidental mutation that helped define our species. But the fusion is, by all accounts, remarkably clean. Such a dramatic chromosomal rearrangement is often catastrophic for an organism. Yet this one was not only successful, but became a fixed and universal trait of our species. The area around the fusion site also has an unusual density of unique and critical genes. Is it possible that this event, this precise, elegant, and species-defining re-engineering of our genetic architecture was not a random accident of nature at all?
Perhaps the most startling evidence for our uniqueness comes from regions of our DNA that scientists have dubbed human accelerated regions, or HARs. These are stretches of genetic code that have remained virtually unchanged for hundreds of millions of years of vertebrate evolution, staying the same in everything from chickens to chimpanzees. Yet, in the human lineage, they have undergone a flurry of rapid, dramatic changes in a very short amount of time. The most famous of these, HAR1, is a gene that is critical for the development of the cerebral cortex, the part of the brain responsible for higher thought, language, and consciousness. What sudden, intense evolutionary pressure could have caused these ancient, stable regions of our DNA to suddenly begin evolving at a furious, unprecedented rate? It is as if our genome was suddenly put on a developmental fast track with a specific focus on creating a larger, more complex brain. These genetic quirks are mirrored in the fossil record. The neat, linear timeline is being constantly pushed back. The discovery of modern human remains in Morocco, dated to over 300,000 years ago, has already forced a major revision of the out-of-Africa timeline. More controversial finds, though dismissed by the mainstream, hint at an even ancient human presence, forcing us to ask if our species might be millions, not thousands of years old. When we assemble these biological clues, the ghost DNA, the precise chromosomal fusion, the accelerated evolution of our brains, and the ever-expanding fossil timeline, a radical, alternative narrative of our own origin begins to emerge. It is a narrative with two profound implications. First, that anatomically modern humans, or a species virtually identical to us, have existed on this planet for a period of time so vast it is almost incomprehensible, giving more than enough time for entire cycles of great civilizations to rise and fall into dust.
Second, and far more controversially, it raises the possibility of intelligent intervention. Could the sudden, inexplicable leap in our cognitive abilities, the rapid evolution of our brains, and the elegant re-engineering of our chromosomes be the signature of an artificial event? Could our species have been upgraded, genetically modified in our remote past by an intelligence far beyond our own? This theory, while speculative, provides a potential answer to the great unsolved mystery of human consciousness. It could explain where the builders of the Vimanas and the Antikythera Mechanism got their impossible knowledge. It suggests that the gods of ancient myths, who came from the sky to bestow wisdom upon humanity, may have been more than just myths. The ghost in our genes suggests that our true ancestry may be far grander and stranger than we know. We may be a species with more than just amnesia. We may be a species with a hidden lineage. The builders of the impossible artifacts we have examined may not have been alien or some other hominin species. They may have been our direct ancestors from a forgotten chapter of human history when we were something more. We have now journeyed from the outer world to our inner world. We have seen the evidence in stone, in metal, in text, and finally, in our own blood and bone. Each piece is a fragment from a shattered mirror, reflecting a different angle of a single, unbelievable truth. It is time to step back. It is time to gather these fragments and dare to piece them together. What picture of our lost past emerges when we try to reconstruct the forbidden timeline of humanity?
We stand at a crossroads between two histories. The first is the one we are taught, a short, simple, and linear story. It begins with the dawn of agriculture around 10,000 years ago, leading steadily through the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and the classical empires, right up to our modern technological world. Before this short story of civilization lies a vast, dim twilight of prehistory, a 200,000-year stretch where our ancestors are depicted as primitive hunter-gatherers, waiting patiently in the wings of time for the curtain to rise on civilization. It is a story of gradual ascent, with ourselves firmly planted at its pinnacle. But the evidence we have examined in this journey points to a second history, a forbidden history. It is not a short and simple line, but a vast, epic, and cyclical story, filled with incredible heights of genius and catastrophic depths of destruction. It is a story so long that entire chapters have been erased by the slow grind of geology, and so profound that its surviving fragments have been dismissed as myth and fantasy. It is time to step back from the individual artifacts, to connect the dots across the millennia, and to dare to reconstruct the shattered timeline of our forgotten past. Our new timeline does not begin a few 100,000 years ago. It begins in the deep, almost unimaginable past, in an epoch that our current science reserves only for dinosaurs and primitive mammals. The evidence of the London hammer, a modern iron tool locked in a 140-million-year-old stone, and the Baigong Pipes, an industrial plumbing system embedded in rock from the Miocene epoch, serve as faint but persistent echoes from this primordial darkness. They suggest that the cycle of industry, metallurgy, and intelligent construction is not a recent invention. They hint at a first cycle of intelligence on Earth, a chapter so ancient that it may not even have been human. Whether this was an indigenous terrestrial species that rose and fell long before the age of mammals, or visitors from elsewhere who established an outpost on a young Earth, we cannot know. All that remains are these impossible geological ghosts.
The next great chapter in our forbidden history begins much later, but still long before the dawn of our accepted timeline. It is the chapter of our own creation. The standard model of slow, natural evolution struggles to explain the sudden, explosive development of the human brain, the elegant fusion of our second chromosome, and the ghost DNA woven into our very being. These anomalies point to an event, an intervention. The myths of cultures all over the world, from the Sumerian stories of the Anunnaki to the Vedic tales of the Devas, speak of powerful beings who came from the sky to create or upgrade mankind. What if this is not myth, but a garbled memory of a real event? What if our species, Homo sapiens, was deliberately engineered? The rapid evolution of the HAR1 gene, the sudden leap in cognitive function, these could be the genetic fingerprints of our makers. This radical theory provides a stunningly elegant solution to many of our deepest mysteries. It explains who the gods of antiquity were, and it provides a source for the advanced knowledge that would later blossom on Earth. In this timeline, we are not an accident of nature. We are the inheritors of a profound and deliberate legacy.
Following this genetic dawn, our ancestors, now endowed with a unique consciousness, did not linger for millennia as primitive hunters. They built a world that would rival our own. This was the true Golden Age, the lost global civilization that haunts our collective memory under names like Atlantis, Lemuria, or Brahma. The evidence for this epoch is scattered across the globe. It is the Antikythera Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old computer that speaks of a lost tradition of mechanical genius. It is the library of the Ica Stones, which chronicle this civilization's incredible knowledge of biology, astronomy, and medicine. It is the colossal energy complex of the Bosnian Pyramids, a work of planetary engineering designed to harness the energies of the Earth itself. The American giants, with their anomalous physiology, may have been another branch of this ancient humanity, coexisting in this global culture. The Vimanas, described in the Sanskrit texts, were not the chariots of imaginary gods. They were the very real vehicles of this advanced human civilization. A civilization that had mastered aeronautics and perhaps even space travel. For an unknown number of millennia, this great civilization flourished. They built, they explored, they understood the secrets of the cosmos. They were the masters of their world. And then it all ended. The same texts that describe the wondrous Vimanas also speak of their use in a war of unimaginable devastation. They describe celestial weapons that could boil the seas, scorch the land, and poison the world for generations. Ancient myths from every culture tell a story of a great cataclysm, a world-destroying flood, a rain of fire from the sky, a shifting of the poles. Whether it was a natural catastrophe like a comet impact or the tragic result of a self-inflicted global war, the Golden Age was brought to a sudden and violent end. The great civilization shattered. Their cities sank beneath the waves, their knowledge was lost, and the very memory of their existence was nearly wiped from the face of the earth.
This was the Great Cataclysm, and what followed was the long amnesia. The few scattered survivors were thrown back into a state of primitive survival. The complex knowledge of physics, astronomy, and engineering was lost, replaced by a desperate struggle for existence. The trauma of the cataclysm was so profound that it scarred the psyche of our species. The memory of the advanced world that came before was preserved only in distorted myths and legends, the stories of a time when men walked with gods. Our own recorded history, the familiar story that begins in Sumer and Egypt around 5,000 years ago, is not the beginning of the story of civilization. It is the story of a slow, painful rebirth. It is the story of a species with amnesia, painstakingly rediscovering the fragments of a science it once commanded. The pyramids of Giza are not the first great monuments on Earth, they are an echo, a copy built by a recovering culture trying to replicate the lost science of the Golden Age. We are not the pinnacle
of human achievement. We are the children of a fallen world, haunted by the ghost of a past we can't remember.
This new timeline is epic, tragic, and ultimately empowering. It reframes our species not as a recent accidental product of evolution, but as an ancient and noble lineage with a forgotten legacy of incredible genius. It suggests that the answers to our greatest questions about who we are and what we are capable of lie not in our future, but buried deep in our past. If this forbidden history is even partially true, it changes everything. It redefines our place in the cosmos and forces us to confront the most fundamental questions of our existence. We are left with one final inquiry, the most important one of all. What does this mean for us, the children of a forgotten age? Who are we, and what is our purpose now?
Our journey is at an end. We have walked through the forbidden wing of history, a museum of impossible things, where every exhibit tells a story that should not be. We have seen a library of knowledge from a time before time, etched in stone. We have held the clockwork of the gods, a testament to a lost science. We have found the echoes of forgotten industry in the deep earth, and the ghosts of a different humanity in our own sacred texts and in the very fabric of our DNA. Each discovery is another crack in the smooth, polished surface of our official history, revealing a glimpse of a much deeper, stranger, and more magnificent structure beneath. If we dare to accept what this evidence implies, the portrait of humanity that emerges is one we were never meant to see. We are not a young species taking our first triumphant steps onto the cosmic stage. We are an ancient one, a species with a past so profound and so traumatic that we have collectively chosen to forget it. We are a species with amnesia, wandering through the ruins of our own forgotten golden age, mistaking the rubble for bedrock and our small flickering campfire for the sun. The evidence suggests we are not the pinnacle of civilization, but the inheritors of a shattered legacy, slowly and painstakingly rediscovering a science and a wisdom that was once our birthright. Our journey is at an end. We have walked through the forbidden wing of history, a museum of impossible things, where every exhibit tells a story that should not be. We have seen a library of knowledge from a time before time, etched in stone. We have held the clockwork of the gods, a testament to a lost science. We have found the echoes of forgotten industry in the deep earth, and the ghosts of a different humanity in our own sacred texts and in the very fabric of our DNA. Each discovery is another crack in the smooth, polished surface of our official history, revealing a glimpse of a much deeper, stranger, and more magnificent structure beneath. If we dare to accept what this evidence implies, the portrait of humanity that emerges is one we were never meant to see. We are not a young species, taking our first triumphant steps onto the cosmic stage. We are an ancient one. A species with a past so profound and so traumatic that we have collectively chosen to forget it. We are a species with amnesia, wandering through the ruins of our own forgotten golden age, mistaking the rubble for bedrock and our small flickering campfire for the sun. The evidence suggests we are not the pinnacle of civilization, but the inheritors of a shattered legacy, slowly and painstakingly rediscovering a science and a wisdom that was once our birthright.